Hi, I'm Bill Brochtrup.
Hi, I'm Kitty Swink, and if you want to know more about Antaeus Theatre, please listen to the conversation we're about to have. I grew up in Portland, Oregon. At the Portland, there was a small community theater that actually did quite good work. And at 6, I started going about every 3 months in high school. And my father had a law office down near Ashland. So during the summers, we would see all the plays in Ashland. And I don't remember not being, like you, I don't really remember not being in love with theater. And then I became an actor and a teacher and now an artistic director. And the love just keeps getting deeper and richer as I enter my dotage.
I have a weird thought that everything is high school. And I fell in love with theater, during high school, like a lot of people. The cool, eccentric, crazy, wildest people at school were part of theater, and I wanted to be a part of that. And because they did a musical. I'm from Tacoma, Washington, and they did a musical every year at the community college that had high school students from all the different schools. So I knew people all over Tacoma because of that. So it seemed very, very sophisticated to me to know people from all different high schools. But that was a whole sort of theater community. And the idea that we all come together at 8 o'clock when the curtain goes up, and it has to happen, whether it's ready or not, or the flats are painted or the costumes are sewn, it's happening at this time. And there's something about that immediacy that brings people together, and you kind of create, as we all know, these sort of families, these very intense relationships that you feel with people when you're in that kind of situation. I loved that. I loved that it threw us together and we became like a unit. And when I say everything is high school, it's because that same feeling still comes over me when we do a play. The people at Antaeus, and as well the people in the Los Angeles theater community, we represent and are a very tight-knit group of people who really do care about each other and care about what we're doing, care about the art that we're trying to make. And I have always felt like I got to spend my life with the fun, interesting people. I call it pub life. It's like I get to hang out with these guys at the pub after the show, and this is the kind of people I wanted to know, and now I do. So that's why I kind of love the whole theater thing. Now you can talk about art and the power of great writing and all these other things, which are massively important. But just on a kind of personal, emotional level, it was that closeness that comes from working together that drew me in and still does.
For my money, it's a two-way membrane. You don't really have a play until the audience is sitting in the theater with you. You rehearse and you learn and you get better and you fine tune everything. But when an audience comes in, they're a living, breathing part of the play process, and they tell you what the play is in a funny way. Because as an actor, I really look at it from my perspective. As an artistic director, as a teacher, I look at the play as a whole. But as an actor, I look at it from what my character needs and wants, and whether I'm doing Shakespeare or a brand new play out of our playwrights lab, it's the same thing. But then the audience comes in and you go, they teach me something every single time. And it's so personal and so intimate. It's the same kind of relationship you would have with a lover, sort of, it's so immediate, and you can't get away from that immediacy. And it's a place where you can fail big or you can soar big in a way that you don't. When you're doing film and television, you sometimes a cruel laugh after the take or something, but it's not the same. It's not that same. You're breathing each other's air. Boy, I wish we could be breathing each other's air right now. You're experiencing the thing in the moment together. And I've had times on stage with Bill where we were as close as I am with my husband of almost 40 years, in a different way, obviously, but so close. And then there's you sitting in the audience, and you bring something else to the party. And every night is so different and so exciting. And you never know when you're walking out for that first entrance or the entrance to what seems like a nothing burger scene or the 11 o'clock number. It's still, you have to show up. You have to be there in your soul. You have to, Uta Hagen once said, it's not finding the character, yourself in the character, it's finding the character in you. And I think that's so true. That would be my reason why I think the experience is so different. There's no separation. You're together.
I've been very lucky to have, in my career, to have worked in film and television and in theater. And I have loved both. I've had great experiences in both. In some ways, the acting is the same. Acting is acting, and figuring out a character and what you're doing and what your character wants and those kind of things are the same in many ways. But to me, I guess the reason I'm drawn back to theater all the time, and maybe it's two things. One is that when you're on a film or a television show, everybody, the crew, everyone feels it. When you get the right take, you do a couple takes, and now we're on the third one, and when it goes right, everybody knows it. There is a feeling in the room that everybody knows it, and we're moving on, and we know, and we never have to think about those words again, and we never have to think about anything in that scene again. It goes right out. In a theater, when we feel like we had a great night and everything went right, we have to come back tomorrow and do it again and try to recreate that without it being a copy of what we did before. So that is a really interesting thing to me, is to try to do it again and better without copying what we tried to do before. It's sort of feels monastic to me. It's like a goal we can never quite achieve. And so because we can never achieve it, it's constantly compelling, because there's nothing to do but keep moving forward and trying again. That's one thing I love about the theater. And the other thing I love about the theater, working in it, is the kind of connection that you feel with the other person on stage is just something that I have not felt in film and television in the same way. In film and television, if you mess up something, they say cut and you get to do it again, and it's well, we didn't do that one very well, let's do it again. On stage, it's a tightrope. People say that it's like a tightrope, and it is so the connection that you have with the person you're acting with to sort of support one another. The kind of, many times I can think of the kind of look I've seen in someone's eye when something's gone wrong, and you're like, and the two actors can see each other, like, we've got to fix this. We got to together do this. There's a real reliance upon your partner that you're the only ones out there. So there's a real reliance upon one another that I think creates a kind of intimacy and closeness that I haven't felt in any other situation. And I think that feeling is it's pretty compelling.
I would add one more thing, and it's something you brought up before you started recording, Bjorn, and that's the play. It's about these words. It's about accomplishing a playwright's vision. And in film and television, it's as much about the editor and the director of photography and all of those things. But the theater is about the word and bringing the written word to life. And that's also really compelling to me.
I became part of Antaeus Theatre Company when I was working on a television show, actually. And the artistic director at that time was Jeannie Hackett, a wonderful actor in her own right. And we worked together on the show, and she said, I'm with this theater company. You should come and do something with us. And she kind of lured me in. But I've always been doing theater in Los Angeles, so I was well aware of Antaeus and what a great bunch of people they were. So when I went, I saw the kind of commitment that people had to the work they were doing. And it's just the kind of actors you want to be around. I mean, it goes back to my earlier answer about hanging out with the awesome people that you want to be with. Antaeus was full of wonderful actors, is full of wonderful actors. And I just wanted to be a part of that. So once I got in and did a play with them, I did my first play with them was a play called Para Palace. And I was like, oh, this is the work I want to do. These are the kind of people I want to work with. It's exciting and vibrant, and people are committed to their work and to the art and to making the play come alive. And I was like, yeah, sign me up.
I became a member shortly after Bill did, and once again, like a year after you. Again, it was Jeannie Hackett had sort of pulled me in. And it's interesting, many of my oldest friends, for instance, Peter Van Norden and my husband did it was Peter's first Broadway show and Armin's second Broadway show together. And Larry Pressman, all these people I had known for years and years and years and years. Larry and I had been members of the Matrix Theatre Company together, were there, and they were the people I wanted to be with. And every time I remember seeing Chekhov ×4 and Bill and Peripalos, and Bill and I had worked together on a show that he was a regular on. And so we knew each other, and my favorite thing about being an actor is rehearsing, and it was a group of people I wanted to be in a room with, rehearsing and learning with. And there's a commitment at Antaeus to three things overall in my mind. Community. It really is a community of artists and actors. So that excited me. I wanted to see that. I wanted to be part of that. And the next thing is a commitment to continuing to learn and grow as artists, which is so exciting and not true everywhere. Absolutely true in many, many places, but at Antaeus, it felt like such a deep commitment. And finally, there's a commitment to great words, whether they're brand new plays or whether they're classics. There's a commitment to that sense of what makes something eternal, and what makes it eternal is that you're looking at big ideas. Maybe it's the sweep of history, or what it is to be an autocrat, or what it is to fall in love, but those are big ideas, and Antaeus embraced that sense of theater. And I like to think under our leadership, we continue to try and find what the next classic is, but also committed to the classics from which the theater originally sprang. So that would be, and I love the place. What can I tell you?
I became an associate artistic director at Antaeus first. We're an actor-driven company, so the artistic directors all come from the company and are actors. Jeannie Hackett, who was running things before we were, she said to me, like, I think you have leadership potential. And I said, I don't even know what you're talking about. I don't even know what that means. But I thought it would be interesting to take on that job. And then Jeannie left, and I've been working as an artistic director with the company ever since. It's about 9 years now. I've enjoyed it very much. It is a different way of thinking, I think, in some ways, than just being an actor. We have a lot of constituencies to kind of answer to when you're an artistic director. You've got to think about your board of directors. You've got to think about your subscribers and your donors and your audiences, as well as the artists who come through our doors. We're dealing with designers, we're dealing with crews, we're dealing with stage managers, as well as the actors. It's just a bigger piece of the pie, kind of. It's been a very interesting thing. I'll tell you, when I've been just an actor after this now in plays at other places and things, it's sort of a relief. It's like, oh wow, I don't have to worry about the marketing, I don't have to think about that. But there's been something great about being an artistic director, and I different people, I think, would approach it differently, and some people have a big stamp they want to put on things. Many artistic directors also direct themselves. I'm not a director, so I haven't done that, but I like to think my philosophy about what our job is meant to do is to help choose material and marry that up with a concept and a director and a cast and designers, and then sort of turn those people loose. And I feel my job is to help amplify their voices. I don't want to necessarily put my stamp on everything, what I think it should be, but I want to make sure that their voices are as clear as possible. in everything that they're doing, and to encourage them to follow where their voice is leading them, and then when it's not clear as an audience, when I'm watching, when it's not clear, say, well, I'm kind of missing, or is this what you meant to do here, or why did you think this? But it's to amplify those voices.
Bill said much of what I would say. I too was an associate artistic director and then moved into artistic director. Like what Bill said, it uses a different part of my brain than my my acting life or even my teaching life. I certainly incorporate them, but it uses a different part of my brain. And I like having to look at things in a bigger way. And I just want to say something about Bill. He is the most astute audience member. When he gives notes to a director, he's so clear because he's always looking for understanding, how to clarify and help the directors and the actors pick those, or designers pick those moments out and lift them up. He was a good role model for me in that thing. I have all my life done. I was a vice president of the Screen Actors Guild. I've always added other tasks into my life besides just being an actor, because a lot of being an actor is working on your work, but it's also sitting around and waiting for the opportunity to work on your work. And I don't think that we have much time to sit around as artistic directors, and being too busy is for me an ideal thing. And I also like sort of being, I know it sounds silly, I sort of like being the mama bear of the theater in a funny way. I like that sense of I'm helping you guys and you're helping me, and thank you.
The Antaeus Playwrights Lab is a really important part of Antaeus. You know, we are a classical theater company. That's how we started. Our founder, Dakin Matthews and Lillian Grog, were people who loved the classics, and they got all of their friends who loved the classics, all the great actors they knew in LA who loved the classics, loved that kind of work, to come together. And that's what Antaeus has focused on, and that's what we've been known for, and that's what, you know, audiences and members love. Several years ago, we started a playwrights lab because people wanted to, and there are so many great playwrights here in Los Angeles. When you're running a classical theater company, and that's the canon you're looking at, it's just, you know, obviously it's a lot of white men writers. It's a lot of plays set in, you know, London or in country houses in Russia, you know, and much less stuff that's set in LA. That was part of the motivation. Of course, the playwrights write all kinds of things. That's, I guess, when we get to the zip code plays, we'll kind of mention that LA aspect in particular. But one of the things that's been exciting about having the playwrights lab is for us to deal with living playwrights, because, you know, obviously Shakespeare and Chekhov don't care at this point what you do with their work. Living playwrights, it's a whole other thing. And so we have a group of playwrights who come together every Tuesday night. Actors from our company also join them, and they read pages, and then there's a discussion back and forth about what works, what didn't work, what hit people, what didn't, and then the playwrights go off and you know, hopefully improve their plays. And we've now produced a series of play readings called Lab Results every year, which are 6 play readings that come out of plays that have been developed in our lab and written in our lab. And then this last season, for the first time, we produced 2 new plays that came out of the Playwrights Lab. So more and more, it's become an important wing of Antaeus. I often look to the Oregon Shakespeare Festival in Ashland as a model, because it's obviously the Oregon Shakespeare Festival. They are well known for their classical work, but they have a lot of new plays there too, and they're now nearly equally as well known for that. And I think that it just is a great combination. Also, I would say that actors who can handle Shakespeare and Chekhov and Shaw are the kinds of actors that you want doing your new material as well, because they're able to really understand things in a great way. So it's been terrific having them, having our actors, I think, hook up with new playwrights has just been a wonderful experience for both the writers and for the actors in the company.
I would say all of those things are absolutely true. And one of the things about the lab is that Bill described what Dakin and Lillian wanted to create when they created it. Antaeus was a part of Greek mythology. He was a Titan, and he could not be defeated as long as he touched the ground, which was his Mother Earth. And Dakin and Ann, because we're a wonky group of people, picked that name because as long as we could touch the ground of classical theater, he could not be defeated. And then what happened in Antaeus's story is that Hercules held him over the ground and was able to defeat him because he could, But as long as we can touch the theater, I think it doesn't just have to be Shakespeare or Chekhov or Lorca or any of those playwrights. As long as we touch the theater, as long as we keep working together, as long as we keep doing the deep dive. And so the Playwrights Lab becomes extremely important because it continues to create the next group of great theater artists. That's how you do it. We had done in the past, Peripalos, which was Bill's first show, was a new play. We had done before I was a member, we had done plays that Lillian and Dakin had written or translated. And as Bill and I came into leadership, we also did Jeffrey Hatcher's play, Cousin Bet, and Jeffrey Hatcher, who's a very famous American playwright, was on the ground with us a lot, or Kenneth Cavender, whose adaptation of Oedipus we did. But now it's not just taking classical material and making it new, but making new material that hopefully will become a classic. And that's why the lab is important, I think, too.
Yeah, we're always looking at the lab as a potential place to find the next classic. The writing that comes out of there is so terrific. We may find, and these plays may go on to become, this generation's like Glass Menagerie or whatnot.
Bill and I and Anna Rose, sort of all from different angles, had this idea. Bill and Anna Rose are big podcast fans. They listen to audio stuff all the time. And I was out walking with one of our board members one day, and she was talking about how during the pandemic, we were doing a socially distanced walk with our masks on, hardly able to understand each other. And she said, I'm listening to radio plays and old ones and new ones, and it draws me in. It's intimate. It's like being in a theater in a way that watching, say, a Zoom reading is not, because there's no lag time. I'm not putting down Zoom readings, but there's something about Antaeus that is so, we're so close. It's so intimate. It's so immediate. And if you put headphones on, you have the same experience. You walk into the world of the play. Bill's probably better about describing how we got to the zip code plays and the radio plays, because I think he was the guy who had the zip code idea. In fact, I'm sure he is.
Several years ago, our Playwrights Lab put together, just as a fun thing to do, a 10-minute play festival. This is back when we were all, before the pandemic and everything. They put together a festival of 10-minute plays, and the prompt, as they call it in the lab, is they give someone an idea, and you kind of riff on that as a writer. And the prompt was zip codes, and so we had these 10-minute plays. That was probably 5 or 6 years ago that we did that. So when we were forced to shut the theater down and leave the building, we were looking for ways to continue on with our audiences and our actors to carry on during this pandemic, as is every theater in the country, the world probably, and lots and lots of people are doing Zoom readings, which is awesome, but. We were looking for a way to recreate the experience that Antaeus has, which is it's a very intimate place. Our theater is only 80 some seats. You're only 5 rows. You're always this close to the audience, and I love seeing actors and plays like this close up. That's what I love. And so we were looking to how can we recreate that. And to me, as a podcast fan, there's something very intimate about people sort of speaking into your ears. It's very, I think it recreates that intimate experience. So, and as a classical theater, as I said, we end up doing lots of plays that are set in far off places. And it's harder to find, classics that are set in California or in Los Angeles. So in looking for something to do, we thought, why don't we have the writers in the lab, let's revisit this idea of zip codes, particularly when what people told us they missed so much about Antaeus was the community, was coming together as a community. And so we thought, what tells that more than our own neighborhoods? Taking a look at our very own neighborhoods where we all live. And so we thought about revisiting these zip code plays, expanding them. And so we from 10-minute plays to like 30-minute plays. Playwrights in the lab pitched zip codes and ideas to us, and we chose 6 of them. We'd have a very diverse group of zip code, and then they went off and wrote them, and we recorded them, and that's a whole thing I guess we can probably explain in a bit. But the idea was to celebrate the diversity of our own neighborhoods and our own city, especially when we're kind of locked down and you can't take a trip to New York or Paris or Tokyo. You're here. And so let's look at our own city and our own surroundings and our own communities and celebrate those. And that's kind of where the idea of the zip code plays came from. And that's where the idea of doing them as audio plays rather than on Zoom, but as something that we can listen to while we're walking around those neighborhoods or walking around our own neighborhoods. And trying to recapture the intimacy that we feel is representative of Antaeus.
And at some point while we were kicking this idea around about how we were going to do it, which is a much longer conversation, we realized that people could explore LA from anywhere in the world. One small example is I have an Irish friend who lives in Wexford, and he and his wife and 2 daughters were going to come to LA this year for the first time. We were going to show them around LA. And now he's very excited that zip code plays are dropping because he and his wife and kids are going to be walking around. They'll still have a chance from Ireland to take a walking tour of LA. They'll just do it in an auditory way, which is, I think, magical. I think that we can take the Antaeus Theatre's work and it can go anywhere in the world now, not just to people who would show up in Glendale on a Sunday afternoon or a Friday night or whatever. I think that occurred to us about, I don't know, a day into pitching back and forth to each other, how important that was. When we started this process, we realized we couldn't do it with the kind of grace and skill that we wanted unless Jeff would come. Jeff Gardner, who's our, Bill will describe everything he does because it's extraordinary. We couldn't do it without his working on it. So we went to him and we said, how can we do this? What will work? What won't work? And he created a method. He purchased a full package of sound equipment to make a little personal sound studio for every actor. He found the clean feed, which is a way for him to record all the actors are working at the same time in the safety of their own homes, but the feed, they each have their own feed, so he can, like you would do on a film or television set, or if you're doing LA Theater Works or whatever, he could edit them so that it was as if they were all in the same room and that the audience who was listening on their headphones were together. And then most miraculously, he created full video explanations of how to set up and break down this thing and how to get your computer to work on clean feed and how to do all of that. And then he tested it out on Bill and I, who may be the 2 biggest Luddites in America. So it was great because if we could do the setup, we figured our actors could do the setup. And then with the patience of a saint, he walked each person through, and every time there was an emergency, for instance, Harry Groner and Don Didowick, who are a married couple and each in one of these zip code plays, their internet during the huge heat wave, their internet failed. They had electricity, but no internet. So he somehow set up a hotspot and was able to get as good of a recording as if their regular internet service was working. And Bill will tell you more about his everything else because he's a god.
When we tried to actually make these zip code plays happen, once the writing was done and the casting was done and the director was done, we had to figure out a way to actually accomplish the recording because obviously during COVID, we couldn't bring people together in the theater to record together. So We are absolutely blessed to have an amazing sound designer. He's our audio producer, sound designer, and Foley artist. And, Foley is, making noises that aren't there. Horse hooves and, car doors and whatnot. He does all those things. In addition to being an amazing actor in our ensemble, Jeff Gardner, we all worship him. He's fantastic. So he put together a package that includes microphone, cables, a little tripod-y thing that has a kind of it's like a sound booth, a portable sound booth, basically, with baffling so that people can speak and sound right. Cords that have to go into your computer, and we recorded on something called Clean Feed, which is better than Zoom because there is no video feed, so that the audio feed is stronger. But everyone, that means all the actors remotely in their house had to learn how to plug in the cables, download Clean Feed, put the settings at the correct place. And Jeff Gardner came up with all these things so we could put together a package for each actor. Each play has 3 actors in it. Our wonderful executive assistant, Jade Mujayas, drove to each actor's house and dropped a package off for them. Jeff Gardner made instructional videos on how to set the whole thing up. And after they were finished, the actors packed the stuff back up. Jade picked the stuff back up. They left it sitting for a couple of days. They disinfected it, and then they brought it to the next set of actors. So it was a big operational kind of, logistical puzzle to put all the pieces together so we could get everybody there together at the same time. Yeah, Kitty is right. We Kitty and I did a test run with all this stuff. I'll kind of show you the setup because I got a little picture here that you can kind of see. There's a little. This is the microphone and the sort of baffled little little room to speak in. And then somehow magically, Jeff with Adam Macias, our sound editor, put these things together, and it sounds like the people are in the same place. It's absolutely amazing. There are there's some kissing, there's some fighting in these zip code plays, and the people sound like they are in the same place. It's absolutely, I don't know how they did it. It's amazing. But that's how we did this to try to make all of it work together and make remotely situated, safe actors sound like they are in the same zip code.
And I also have to say, Jeff has a long working relationship with the composer, Ellen Mandel, who's done a bunch of shows for us. And Ellen and Jeff together, the music that she created and then he wove into it is extraordinary. They're such a good team. My first experience with the two of them working together was being on stage in Picnic, and the world that they created was so specific. And once again, Ellen has really, she and Jeff work together so seamlessly. It just enhances everything that he has done and all of the actors and the directors and the writers have done.
We also are lucky to have Ramon Diocampo as our host, and he is the host of the entire Zip Code Plays project. And so he speaks at the beginning and the end of each episode, giving us a little context, little information, and introducing each of the plays. And he is a wonderful actor and award-winning audiobook narrator. So we're very, very lucky to have Ramon on board as the host of this entire project. Well, each play is totally different. And I think what's exciting about them is that they come in a real variety of styles and genres. All we did was pick the playwrights from the pitches that we received and the zip codes, and we wanted zip codes from all over Los Angeles, and then we let the writers do what they wanted. There was no other note from us except for to, again, strengthen their voice and make their voice as clear as possible. So we have some magical realism, and we have some historical fiction, and we have some things that are based on true stories, and we've got a little piece of satire. So they're all different. As you travel around Los Angeles, not only will you be moving between different geographical locations, but you'll be moving through different genres. I think that's really exciting.
As we met with each of the playwrights, we narrowed it down, and we met with each of the playwrights to talk to them. Most of these playwrights I've known for years because I do often go to lab, but what we thought we would walk into a meeting and hear from these playwrights would often completely surprises. For instance, Santa Monica, Plucker, when we met with Nina, who's the playwright, we had no idea that we were going to scream with laughter through the entire meeting. She was just so deliciously funny, and we were so excited then after that play. And with each meeting, we were meeting with Khari, Wyatt, and learning about what happened in South Central at the end of World War II as writers, as Black American writers were often leaving and going to France, where they were more welcome, and what happens in this family. And it was fascinating to us to learn more about that history. So with each one, we got more and more excited because each of these playwrights brought something to our attention and to the party that we had no concept about. So that's exciting. And that's true for all 6 playwrights and all 6 plays.
You can listen to the Zip Code plays in any order, but we have an order that we kind of put them in. So the first play is South Central by Khari Wyatt, South Central Los Angeles. And it is a piece set in 1953 when Central Avenue had just coming off of being a thriving neighborhood and just beginning to change. And it's a really interesting historical piece that talks about race relations in Los Angeles and in the world. I think it's funny. It's a little dark. It's a little sexy, and it is.
It's not a little sexy. It's very sexy. Just saying.
And it touches on an interesting history of Los Angeles that a lot of people wouldn't know. The second play is set in Pacific Palisades by Alex Goldberg. It is a very interesting, based on true story, crazy true story, a little piece of an odd little piece of LA historical anomaly. It's just a strange little story. And so it's based on a true thing of something that happened in the Palisades on the verge of World War II. And so I think people will want to tune in to find out like what kind of odd things were happening in the Palisades at that time. The third play is Santa Monica by Naina Agrawal, and it is a satirical piece based on a true thing that happened to her, an actual event that happened to her in Santa Monica. And it really just pokes fun at the kind of pretensions that one finds in Los Angeles, and some of those stereotypes about Los Angeles that are a little bit true. And I think it's a very funny little piece of satire. The fourth play is set in Westwood, and it is by Deb Height, and it's in an interesting genre of like found materials. It is items that have been tape recordings that have been found in an FBI file on a woman who's become a new protester in the social justice world, and it's as in the Blair Witch Project, insofar as like it's found material, and it's set in Westwood. The next play is set in Sun Valley, and it's by Steve Serpus. And it is a really interesting relationship story between two people set in an auto junkyard, two people who have a lot of coincidence has reconnected them, and they kind of come together and find a little bit of salvation in far out in the valley. And the last play is Downtown Los Angeles by Angela J. Davis. And it is it's a piece of magical realism. It is a little fantasia where some historical figures come back to life in Los Angeles, and sort of set in a swirling world high above the city of angels. We take a look at grace and kindness and forgiveness. And it's kind of a perfect ending for this series of our Zip Code plays. I
think the thing about these plays that I want people to take away is that they might learn something. They might have a new experience of audio that they didn't have before, but more importantly, I want them to have a really good time. I want them to feel like they are back in the Antaeus community, that they're part of this, that they're welcomed into our world. And because I think the art is so good, what those writers and actors and directors and Jeff and Ellen and Adam have created is so good that I want them to walk away and say, Antaeus doing the kind of top level work we expect from them. And I want them to come back. I want them to feel like the theater is going to come back. It's going to survive and it's going to be fine. That's my personal goal. I just can't say enough because I didn't really do anything except work with everybody to help facilitate this. I can't say how excited I am about how good these plays are. I'm so thrilled. And I want the audience to know that we put our heart and soul into it.
Well, I think people must listen to the zip code plays because what we're missing in the theater world today, what the audience are missing is community and coming together. We can't do that now. That is the point. You know, we're all on Zoom calls all day, you know, all of us. And it's great. And thank goodness it works as well as it does, but it is not the same as being together. Now, the zip code plays are not going to quite bring us together, but you must hear them because does bring us together. It is people doing theater in your ear. They are speaking right to your soul. That's why you must listen to it. We don't have any plans to bring these particular zip code plays to the stage, though. These were written for this audio purpose. We're absolutely hoping to produce plays written by playwrights within our lab, but these zip code plays were written specifically to be recorded for this purpose. I want to do another edition of the Zip Code Plays very badly. I just want to dive in and do more. We'll see what happens and how long, you know, we are not on our stage in the traditional sense. But to my mind, there's a number of good reasons to continue the Zip Code Plays. There are lots more zip codes to do and speak about and stories to tell. And we've done the hard work of trying to figure out how to do it remotely, how to accomplish it. You know, figuring out the microphones and the cables and the platform and all that was the hard part. And now we know how to do it. So I feel like it would be kind of a shame if we didn't continue.
I would go one further and say, my big hope is that even after the world opens up, maybe we'll continue to find ways to do these audio plays, because I think one of the things that we've learned during the pandemic is people are craving this kind of culture, and people are more and more listening to podcasts. So I think it's a way for the future, even when the theater is back up and running and audiences are coming in.
Another great thing about these audio plays and releasing them in a podcast format is that they're free. Anyone can listen to them. There's no barrier to, as there often is for theater tickets, and people can't afford them. Also, you can listen to these anywhere and anytime you like. So if you're not near Glendale, where our theater is located, if you are not free, you know, in the evenings when we do shows, all the many reasons that might be barriers that keep people from attending the theater, all of that is available for free on either our website or any of the places where people get their podcasts from. And so I hope it will be something that sort of tears down barriers that may keep people from attending theater or from getting to know Antaeus. And that could be a great thing.
I'm going to add one anecdotal story because I love it so much. That we did Nambi E. Kelly's adaptation of Native Son, which was spectacular and thrilling. And we did it in our theater, and we then transferred it to we were lucky enough to be picked for Block Party, which is part of the Center Theater Group's new play festival that they do, picking plays from small theaters in LA every year at the Kirk Douglas. But at Antaeus, our actors came to us in the middle of previews and said, this play is a lot emotionally and in every other way. And our audience needs to talk about it, and we need to talk about it. So because of the size we are, where we were small enough and large enough, every single night the actors came on stage and sat there, and most of the audience would sit there, and they would have a talk back, but really it was a communal experience. And I think that's the kind of thing that Antaeus provides that very few big institutional theaters can, and small intimate theaters also find difficult to do. That's an anecdote that I think says so much about who Antaeus is and who our audience is. My sort of big overarching answer is always that I believe art changes lives. That that coming to the theater humanizes us in a way and teaches us empathy. And not only is it a rousing good time, and it's the only place I've ever been in my life where the artists and the audience members mingle constantly. We have a real, Bill talked a lot about community, I talked a lot about community, but at Antaeus, we really embrace the idea that after the show, you're gonna, the same actor that you saw on NYPD Blue as a series regular, you're gonna hang out with in the lobby and chat with afterwards and talk about art and life and what they just experienced and what the actor experienced at the same time. And so that's the first thing, art changes lives, whether it's in our arts education program, whether it's coming to the theater, whether it's listening to zip code plays. The other thing is, it's just a really nice place to be. I gotta say, I'm proud of the art, but I'm also proud of the world that we live in and the world we're trying to create for the future that's inclusive and diverse and exciting and humanizing and all of the things that I think art should be.
I think people should get involved at Antaeus because it is a real artistic home, not just for the actors who work there, but for our audiences as well. I like to think that we sit in a very sweet spot in that we are big enough that we can kind of, I think, create world-class art and support that in the way it needs to be supported, but small enough that as an audience member, you matter. Seeing a show in a big, ginormous theater is fabulous. But we're able to create something that's much more intimate, much more personal. When you come to Antaeus and you hang out in the lobby afterwards and talk to people, you get to hang out with the actors. You meet them, and your voice matters, and your interest matters, and we're there, and you can talk to us and one-on-one. And if you have an idea for something great or play that needs to be done, we're excited to hear it. It's a more of a hands-on experience than I think you can get at a lot of places. So small enough where you matter and big enough where the art is, I think, world-class.
Right now, we're trying to concentrate on what we can do right now and be ready when the world opens up. I'm sure Antaeus will survive the plague. As the London theater survived the plague in Shakespeare's time, and theater survived the 1918 flu pandemic. But in the meantime, we want to make sure that people have access to art and community and work and joy and laughter and all of those things. So it's yes and. Yes, we intend to open the theater as soon as it's safe and possible and makes sense. But in the meantime, we want to keep bringing art to all of our constituencies and making art because that's who we are. Hi, I'm Swink. I'm the co-artistic director of Antaeus Theatre. And if you enjoyed this conversation, I hope you did, please go to our website, www.antaeus.org. That's ANTAEUS.
Hi, I'm Bill Brochtrup. I'm co-artistic director of Antaeus Theatre Company. And if you enjoyed this conversation, please check out the Zip Code plays available for free on either our website or any of the places where people get their podcasts from.